TJ is someone who is not just a former bootcamp student, but he's actually an instructor today. And when we were thinking about what better guest to see on our AMA, TJ is someone who has seen hundreds of people go through this process, and he's gone through this process himself. And so to kick things off, I asked him to come in and share with you what are those common mistakes that people make when they're trying to make a career transition and when they're attending a boot camp. And so we're going to get to unpack all of that on tonight's call. But before we dig into it, I'm going to ask TJ a few questions about his background, and then we're going to open it up for questions for the rest of the community. Okay? So before we begin, TJ, I just want to say welcome. And can you tell the folks a little bit about yourself, where you're coming from, what you're doing now, and what drives you as you're working at Kenzie?
Yeah. So what's going on, everybody? I was born and raised in Indianapolis. I started off I graduated in 2015 from North Central. And at that point, I kind of really didn't have a whole lot of direction in my life. Like, I knew I wanted to go to college, but I kind of didn't really know what major I wanted to take, or like what my plan was going to be after college or anything. But I did get accepted into IU. Ended up going there. I was kind of fishing around for majors, but really the only thing in my mind was just, what could I take that was going to make me the most money? But I did end up stumbling into informatics, and that's kind of what got me introduced to like the whole software development field. I kind of just got interested in coding from that, and just saw the impact that it was starting to have on the world today, and just kind of how accessible it was for people to start learning it, even though it kind of does seem like hieroglyphics at some points.
Yeah.
But so after my second year at IU, things just really weren't working out financially for me. Like, I wasn't really able to work down there because I didn't have my car, and I was kind of struggling a little bit with classes. So things just kind of took a pretty downhill turn, and I ended up coming back home. And I was kind of just didn't really know what I was doing with my life at that point. I was just working as a landscaper and taking online classes. And then at that point, I found out about Kenzie through my grandfather. And what I liked the most about Kenzie was just that it was somewhere where there was a guaranteed outcome. So I feel like, and I've always been told, like, if you're not planning for the future, then there's really no point in what you're currently doing. And I feel like Kenzie, as opposed to like other colleges and some of the other boot camps, like, puts everything in your face for like what to expect in that actual job environment. So that's what I liked about Kenzie. And then they actually didn't have it at the time of me applying, because I actually ended up being a part of the second cohort. But the whole earn and learn program that they have, I was actually a part, like, in the first group with that. And the thing that I like even more about that is that now you can go to classes and you can work at the same time, because those schedules like work around that. But the flip side of that, and the reason why I ended up quitting that job, is because like, you kind of have to have really good time management skills when it comes to that, if you really want to still benefit from Kenzie. But basically, that's how I found out about Kenzie. That's how I got to the point I'm at now. Did I leave anything out to more?
I think it's a great overview. In terms of what you're doing now as an instructor, what are some of your roles? Like, what are your day-to-day roles dealing with students?
So basically, since classes have gotten in such larger scales now, they've kind of divided the classes into smaller groups with like with a facilitator. So I'm in a facilitator role, and basically it's somebody that's there side by side with the lead instructor to help get students through any of their problems and like just help make sure that they're not slipping through the cracks. So now they have it where a facilitator is basically in charge of a group about 20 or 30 students. And every day in the morning, there's something called a stand-up. And basically that's where you have the opportunity as a student to ask any questions. And it's where like I'll do any announcements at that point. And something with stand-ups, like for any of you that are going to be students in the future, the people that take advantage of stand-ups and like the people that ask useful questions during those stand-ups are the ones that like do better in the course, because they're actually getting that understanding. And really it's just about speaking up more than anything, like not having that fear. So that's kind of how the day starts with that stand-up. Then there's usually an hour or two between that, and then there's something led by the instructor called the demo. And the demo is basically just where the instructor will go in further detail over something that you're probably currently working on, like a project or just a concept that you might need to know for something in the future. And then at noon Eastern time, that's when we break for lunch for an hour. And we come back, and typically between like the stand-up and the demo, that's when if people are struggling, like they'll come to me, one of the facilitators, or like there's also people called coaches that are just there to help out answering questions too. And like, so between those times of stand-ups and demo and like the lunch break, and then the end of the day, that's at 3 p.m. Eastern time, that's when like you'll have the opportunity to get extra help if you need more hands-on help. And like that's usually where I'll be giving that help or grading papers or doing something along those lines.
Thanks, TJ. That's a great overview. And so we're about to open it up for questions, but before we do so, having seen people like go through this course and having gone through it yourself, what are those either habits or practices that successful students do versus those that might take longer to complete, or people who drop out of the course?
So I would say that one of the main things for the people that find a lot of success in the course is like they treat it like they already are in the profession. So it's not like they're a student. It's kind of more like I'm a software developer that like just got this new, like that. This was kind of the mindset that somebody had told me that they had taken. Like this is a job. Like Kenzie Academy is basically like a new job. When you're first starting, like it's day one onto this new project that you might like, you could think of it as a new project that you're getting where you have to learn these coding languages. And like the end goal is you're going to be getting paid, like hopefully to like apply those concepts. So like if you have that motivation, that kind of pushes you to make sure you're there every day. Like you're coding every day. You're speaking up when there's demos, like you're asking questions. If there's anything, if there's a single thing that starts confusing you, just instantly speak up, because none of the instructors are like stopping you from doing that. They don't care if you even say like, hey, you're straight up not making sense right now. Like that helps them out more than it hurts them, because it lets them know like, okay, I need to actually sit down and explain this a little more in depth. So definitely make sure you're speaking up. Definitely make sure you treat it like a job, treat it like something that you're already getting paid for and that you're trying to impress your boss. Like think of your instructors as your boss and you want to impress them, make an impression on them. Because really it's about making an impression on like the people that you come across, in my opinion, more than anything.
Yeah, and for people, I see there's some people on the call now who are attending boot camps. Some are they've gotten accepted and they're getting ready to start. In terms of moments when you do feel stuck in the course, what advice do you have for getting yourself unstuck? And finding that motivation to keep going?
For me,
Yeah.
okay. So I would say the main thing is just knowing that everybody was stuck somewhere. Like Steve Jobs was stuck at a point. uh Zuckerberg, like anybody that you might look up to, and it doesn't even have to be a developer, like they had a point where it was like they didn't know what direction to take or what to do next, and they asked somebody, and like that's why they're in the position now. So the main thing that like I just had to realize is just that I needed to humble myself and just know that everybody has a starting point, and like the way that you get to a better position is by like using your resources and taking it to the next like step in that regard. So I just think when you get in that stuck position, just know that everybody's been stuck and that you're not getting judged for asking a question.
Yeah. That's a great answer. And we now have 70 people on the call. I see a lot of people are planning their 2020 goals, and they're trying to figure out how to better their careers. In terms of your journey through Kenzie, so you were a student at once, and then you now work for Kenzie. So how did that play out? And were you looking for jobs after you graduated, or did you just go directly into working at Kenzie as a facilitator?
Yeah, like so after the first 6 months, that's kind of where they get a little more proactive about like trying to find people jobs. So at first I had told them like just straight up that I wasn't even interested in like a teaching sort of role in the first place, because I like in my mind I was thinking that I wanted to get hands-on experience with the coding languages and like actually like get that kind of experience. But then the more I thought about it, it's kind of like either way, I was going to be exposed to those concepts the same way and like get that same sort of practice. So at first, I was shopping around a little bit with jobs. I had a few interviews, and I had a few actually follow-up interviews. Um, but the position either wasn't working out at the time, or they just chose not to hire me. And then it was actually right before graduation, about like a week or two before graduation, the person that's like over all the instructors. So he had originally been the first instructor, um, and he was like teaching over me. So I made that like connection with him when he started off as my instructor, and made that impression with him, I guess. And then eventually, like at the point right before graduation, he like pulled me aside and said that he thought that I would be a good candidate for a facilitator role. And he said that was in part like because I had mentioned earlier about coaches. So coaches are current students. So all of you guys will have the opportunity to be a coach once you're past the first quarter. And basically a coach is just like a part-time facilitator, basically. Like you're there for questions, you grade assignments and everything. And that's one of the roles that I had when I was a student there. And he said like from what he saw from what I did with that gave him a sign that he thought I would be a good asset as a facilitator. So I was just humbled by that offer, and I love Kenzie, so I definitely just hopped on that opportunity.
Yeah, it's definitely a great opportunity. And Career Karma also values coaching a lot. And we actually have a few coaches. Some of them are attending Kenzie, some of them are attending Flatiron, Thinkful, and other schools. But our Career Karma coaches on here, I want to just do a quick shout out. Any coaches from Career Karma on here? I
Hey,
saw Craig earlier. I don't know if his camera is still on, but the reason I want to emphasize this is for two reasons. The first reason is coaching. Some schools pay coaches to facilitate like different groups, and that could be potentially some additional income that will be coming in your way as you're attending the school, right? So some people, they try to attend schools and then have like a non-related job just to pay the bills. Well, a lot of schools, if you're trying hard and you're demonstrating that you like teaching others, then some of these schools will hire you too to be a TA or a coach, so you have income coming in. The second announcement I wanted to make is that Craig and there's a number of other coaches are now students who are enrolled in different coding boot camps, but they all started on Career Karma, and now they're also providing coaching for all of you who are in the community. So if you had questions about preparing for a boot camp, getting accepted, and so forth, you could potentially you can book a one-on-one session or multiple sessions with a coach who will help you figure out your 2020 goals and help you succeed. I know it was a small tangent, but I wanted to highlight that because I'm going to share some links in the chat so people can book their sessions. But back to TJ. TJ, so it sounds like your whole journey was you stumbled into this into Kenzie as a school thanks to your grandpa. Shout out to grandparents. And then you took a chance on them. You took a chance because the outcome was like guaranteed. You weren't going to pay them until you were in a job. Then you became a teacher. My last question to you before we break out for Q&As is why, like, what drives you as a teacher? Why do you like teaching? And what is your goal, like career goal for the next 5 years?
Yeah, so the selfish answer to that question is because, like, that gets me to a mastery level. Like, if I can explain the stuff that I just got done learning, then that means that, like, I actually understand it and I'll be able to apply it one day in an actual developer job, like where it'll be more hands-on. And then the other reason and, like, the thing that's more of a motivation is just, like, I like knowing that someone is going to be better off, like, than the position that they were at. And just knowing that, like, I was a part of that, like, that means a lot to me. Like, I just appreciate seeing somebody that they might be, like, about to punch a hole in their laptop with the question that they have for me one day. And then, like, a month later, they're one of the leaders for, like, their projects that they have to do for, like, the graduation. So seeing all that is real powerful. And I appreciate getting those experiences.
Awesome, TJ. I respect everything that you do. And this is a perfect segue to open it up for questions. Feel free to unmute yourself, please, and ask TJ questions. Make sure to introduce yourself and maybe share like a 30-second snippet about why you joined Career Karma and what your 2020 goals are. Mia, did you just unmute yourself?
I did.
Hey, Mia. Happy New Year's.
Happy New Year to you as well. So obviously he's already said my name. My name is Mia. I'm signed up to join Kenzie Academy on the 28th of this month, and I'm super, super excited.
Hey.
Coding's been a long time passion. I started it in my freshman year of high school. I went into computer science class, did all the programs way too quickly. Then they were like, oh, let's try keyboarding. And I was like, okay. So past that, then they handed me a computer and said, hey, go home, clean this, put it back together, make sure it works. And I did that in a couple of days. So then my teacher was like, okay, we're just going to put you on coding because it's the only thing I can think of that challenges you. So I started coding back then, back when HTML was like a real big thing and web pages were still square. I quit doing it because my family had kind of said, you know, you want to keep some hobbies to yourself and not pursue them. Because if you pursue your hobby, then you'll end up hating your hobby. I have actually found the opposite. I'm now 28 years old, and I've kind of been looking into coding for like the last 8 months and decided just to jump head in about the same time that I saw the Career Karma app advertised on my Facebook. So I was like, all right, this sounds cool. Went in there, and my coach actually is enrolled in Kenzie right now. And so I was talking to them about the things that were important to me about school and how I learn. And they were like, it really sounds like Kenzie is kind of up your alley, not to toot Kenzie's horn or anything. So you might want to check it out. And Kenzie had already been at the top of my list. So I applied to 3 schools, ended up getting into Kenzie on the first try. And here I am doing way too much, way too quickly. My only question is, and I just kind of like seeing the answer to this question, what was the hardest part of coding for you between HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and React?
So are you talking about language specific wise, like which language was the most difficult, or just like learning those languages? What was the hardest part?
Just learning those languages. I mean, everybody's going to have their thing that they're kind of good at, so that differs. But in learning those languages, what was the hardest part for you?
Yeah, I would say like when it gets hard, because when something clicks for you right off the bat, like then it's fun learning more about it because you understand it. But when something's hard, you kind of lose that motivation, and it kind of feels more like a chore than it does like an actual experience for you. So just in the times that you're not feeling like motivated to learn the material, just find some other sort of motivation for it. Like reach out to the instructor and see if you can just meet with him and just straight up talk about the language, or just find different ways to get that motivation back to keep learning it.
Thank you for your answer, and thank you for your time today.
Of course, Mia. Thank you for your intro.
Thanks, Mia. Let's see. What other questions do you all have?
I got a question.
Yeah, jump in.
Yes. So thank you so much, TJ, for letting me get a chance to meet with you and just ask a couple quick questions. Yeah, my name is Micah. I'm in Tennessee, and my wife has actually got me turned on to doing some coding, and I have no idea anything about coding. I just trying to learn as much as I can during the Grasshopper and during the app and stuff like that. What's your best advice for someone that doesn't know anything about coding?
Well, exactly what you're doing, like Grasshopper, and then make sure you do, well, if Kenzie's going to be your choice, make sure you do like the Kenzie free. That's a good way to like get an introduction into like what you're kind of going to be exposed to for the first 3 months. And then there's another resource like Udemy, I think is something that I heard getting tossed around a lot, and Free Code Camp. Just things that there's just a few free resources out there that I've heard of that maybe doing those tutorials will help a little more, just getting comfortable with it.
Cool. That's what I want. But thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, of course, man. Thank you.
Thanks, Mika. Who else says? Kelly, I saw you had a question.
Yes, I do. I'm Kelly. I am currently a part of the October cohort for Kenzie, and we just started really getting into object-oriented programming, and I was kind of wondering, like, as we go on from there, like, where do you feel the toughest area is for people to learn going forward?
Let me think about that, because I want to like think about like what was the toughest for me. So the object stuff is kind of a little bit of a curveball once you start diving into that, because you kind of have to know how like there's a different set of methods that you kind of have to learn the same way that you had to learn it with arrays. So definitely like make sure for these object lessons that are coming up that you try to focus on that, because objects are kind of one of like, I feel like they get used a lot in JavaScript, like even with React that's going to be coming up for you in the next quarter. Like those are basically all objects. So make sure you have an understanding of that. Also, once you start diving into React, so Kenzie, it becomes a little more faster paced because it is a lot of content is covered just like in that 12-month span. So once you get into the React quarter, it's going to be a little harder to try to really get like that, like being able to soak in all of that content, because there's an assessment, like the assessment pace kind of ramps up a little bit, and like the difficulty becomes a little like broader. So I would say, like, if you have the extra time, once you get onto the React quarter, like, try to spend it on that, because that's where the pace kind of picks up a little bit.
Hey, TJ.
Hey.
My name's Z. I'm attending Thinkful, and my target graduation date is early April of 2020. And my question for you, first of all, thank you for talking with us all and sharing your story. What do you do now for coding? Like, do you still continue to work on your own projects and like code and stuff in addition to working as a facilitator full time?
So I'll like, honestly, I need to be doing more. I'm glad, like, I've been kind of trying to focus a little more on the facilitator position. So that like goes as far as me like trying to understand the assessments more and stuff like that. But I actually am trying to work on a few side projects, and basically what that is like, what that looks like is I kind of got attached to the React language a lot when I first got introduced to it. So what I've been doing is, like, one of my friends has his own clothing brand, so I tried to make a little sort of gallery web page for him in React, and that's like something that I've been trying to work on with him. And then also, I feel like a little further down the line, once I get a little more comfortable with Kenzie, I'll probably try to market that a little more and like just tell people that I know how to code, and then just get the practice in making them like portfolio pages or making a little gallery for somebody. Because once you learn React, that's something that a lot of web pages get made in. So that's kind of what I've been doing to keep the practice going.
Thank you.
Yeah, and for people who are joining, a lot of the front end technologies, the very foundation is JavaScript, and so if anyone's doing Grasshopper right now, you're actually learning JavaScript, which is going to help you be better at React and those other technologies down the line. Some of the common questions that we get is, if I want to build mobile apps, what language should I start learning, Java or iOS? And honestly, I still tell people to download Grasshopper, even if you want to build mobile apps down the line, because at this point, don't just pigeonhole yourself into a specific technology. You want to get a broad understanding of programming languages, and then if you want to build mobile apps, you could use React Native to build stuff for the web and mobile. Our app, the Career Karma app, is actually written in React Native, which is a JavaScript framework. And so our whole team writes the code once, and we deploy that code to Android and iOS. And in 2020, we're also going to have a web app. I know that's been a common question from a lot of you. And we're going to be sharing the same code base, so we're not going to have to customize it for a specific platform. So I think JavaScript, React, that's the future. There's a lot of innovation there. And so if you're thinking about what to learn, start with those technologies. Let's see. Any other questions?
Yeah, I got a question.
Jump in.
Hey, Delbrick, I spotted you out. I saw you in there. What's up, man?
No, first thing first, man. Happy New Year to you.
Same to you, sir.
Well, I want to say thank you, TJ, because you've always been super solid with the students, and man, and definitely very informative, man. When we get stuck, you've always been there to help. So I got nothing but gratitude amongst gratitude to you. I mean, I made it to Q2 based on the help that you gave me. So I'm very thankful for that. But my question is, going forward, what is your true coding aspirations? Because like, you know, when you get in code, and I've been doing code like a while back, HTML was my love way back in the day, and like when JavaScript came out, like, don't get that away from me. And then JavaScript became a little bit easier once I got acclimated with it. It's still not nothing that I could just say, oh, I got down pat. I still have to take my time and do certain things with it. But what are some coding languages that you really see out there that is grabbing your attention and says, you know what, I want to apply that to my skill set?
Everything Tamar was just saying about React and like React Native, like I just feel like that's something that if you understand HTML, because it uses those like components look kind of like HTML tags, and if you like get more of a grasp in JavaScript and like how that kind of incorporates with React, then that's definitely something I would like focus on and hone in. But then also Python is something else that I feel like a lot of jobs are looking for and like pays well. So Python too. But
it's funny you say that, because one of my good friends is he got his master's in HR, and he sent me an email at the end of 2019 saying that there's going to be a 68% job increase on Python. So that was major, because I fell in love with Python out the gate too, because it was just one of those languages that kind of falls in your hand, and you don't really have to do a lot much for it. So
I don't know. I don't like Python. But yeah, I'm a front end guy, I think. But really anything, well, all the stuff that Kenzie's teaching, like that's the stuff that I like a lot.
What about Ruby?
What's up?
Ruby on Rails?
Oh yeah. I've heard of Ruby too, and I think that's actually built off of JavaScript. So that goes right back to that, like learning about JavaScript, that's a really good asset to have. So
yeah. Also, there were a few questions in the chat. I think Charisse, they wanted to ask, how does Kenzie do their grading system? Is there like a GPA or anything like that that comes out of it? And I guess to build on top of that, if you're an employer, what are the things that you look for when you're evaluating someone who's applying? Do you look at their GPA and their bootcamp, their portfolio? What are those things that employers look for as well?
okay, so as far as grading, that's kind of all based on assessments that you'll get. So assessments are kind of like little projects that kind of serve as milestones for your progress, like through the course. And it's basically 2 or 3 assessments every week. And for the first quarter, it's just all assessments. So the point value for those will typically range from like 5 points to all the way up to like 20. And then after the first quarter and the second quarter, it's going to be more assessments. But then at the end of that, so like for the graduation mark, the requirements for that are that you have to have at least, I think it's either a 75% or an 80% in the first quarter and in the second quarter. And then on top of that, you also have to complete, okay, Kelly said it's 80%. Thanks, Kelly. And then also you have to complete a capstone project, I believe. And that capstone project's like graded out of, that's graded out at 80 points too. So that's basically what the like grading kind of looks like. And then in the second quarter, it's the same, or well, in the back end portion, it's the same way. And there's another capstone project at the end of the back end curriculum. I think it's worth around 80 points too. So that's how the grades are given. But then employers, so from my interviews that I've had, like, and I don't even know if I like really have the justification to like give advice on this, but from my experiences, like the only thing that they've had me show, so they had me show it just an example of a project that I was doing in the language that like I was applying for. So there's a company in Indianapolis called Xylo, and for that first interview, that I was applying for a React position, and for the first interview, or for the interview where they had me show my project, I actually showed my capstone project for the 6 months. So that's typically something that I was asked to present. Also, I had another interview where it was basically like they had an empty like coding program pulled up, and they just asked me like, okay, if I wanted to write a function that loops over an array, how would I write that out? And then I would have to like walk them through the whole process of like how that would work. So that's kind of like what I've seen from employers usually. It's typically either like they'll have me show one project, or they'll ask me a question and have me do live coding.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to explain it. When it comes to coding bootcamps, it's primarily for adults, and people who are doing coding bootcamps, they're not doing it to just get a good grade and kind of make their parents happy. They're doing it for themselves because they want to achieve a better life for their families, for their kids, and obviously for themselves. And so grades are usually just a way for them to measure how you compare like to the timeline that they set out for you. Are you tracking according to the lesson plans? Are you falling behind? Do you need to catch up? But employers, most of them are not going to ask you about your coding bootcamp experience. They're going to ask you about the projects that you know how to build. They'll ask you about technologies that you've used. And you're going to primarily lean on that versus where you went to school. That's kind of how the portfolios is what they look for, not just some certificate that you got when it comes to the job search. Let's see. We have about 20 minutes left. Any other questions?
I've got one if I can.
Yeah, jump in, Craig.
Hey, TJ, how you doing? I'm Craig. I'm a coach. I'm actually going to Flatiron, but I talk to people every day, and we're trying to figure out which program works best for them, with schedule and ISA or money down, all that kind of stuff. So we get a lot of questions. One question I get a lot, where people are curious if they do Kenzie full-time online, how flexible is the curriculum during the week? So if they were trying to cram in, what is the average amount of hours someone should expect to spend each week? And how flexible are those hours as far as how much time can they spend on their own time, or do they need to be sitting in front of a computer with the class? Like how much of that can they do? Like for people that are trying to work a part-time job or work or have kids and stuff like that, I get those kind of questions a lot.
Mm-hmm. So that's a really good question that I got to think about for a little bit. So start off with that one, I would say that you should kind of expect to spend, I would say around 40 hours like with the content a week, because I think that's how much time would be added up if you added that 9 to 3 8-hour block, like 5 days out of the week. That's typically like that's what you should expect to spend, how much time you should expect to spend, like to be able to really kind of hone in and grasp the material. The other thing that like kind of makes it that you kind of want to be there is like there's demos typically every day. So what a demo is like when the instructor will go, he or she might completely cover one concept, or they might even like do a whole project. So that's kind of the other area where you kind of want to be in attendance, but those are starting to be recorded now. So that kind of gives people more of an option to just tune into those later. And there's also a Pacific time scheduling. So I think you can either take the Eastern time, it's like 9 to 3 Eastern time, or the Pacific time. And I'm not sure of the hours, but I think it's like 4 to 8 Eastern time or something like that. I'm pretty sure it's on the website though now. But that
I think the hours are 12. It's 9 to 3 Pacific time, which would be 12 to 6 Eastern time.
Okay. So if you're in the Eastern time zone, that kind of gives you more of flexibility to be able to like maybe fit in a part-time job with that. But the thing the thing that like you kind of want to be conscious of is like you don't really want to waste your own time. So like if you can't manage, and I would say it's like 30 or 40 hours a week. Like if you can't manage that and trying to like really being exposed to a completely new concept, it's kind of like even comparable to learning like Spanish or something like that. Doing that and trying to focus on balancing like a part-time job schedule, it's hard. So like you have to make sure that because like one thing will always end up taking precedent over the other. So if I would say when they try to like throw their time around, like that might end up hurting them in the long run with the actual program. Like they'll probably either have to expect to follow one of those 8-hour schedules, like to be able to find success, in my opinion.
And I appreciate it, man. Like I said, get those questions. And last thing I want to do is steer somebody wrong and get somebody excited that it's going to work out. And then they find out, they have to be static certain hours, whatever. But if there's flexibility there for some people, if you have like a stand-up kind of thing each day or something for the instructors, can they do that like over the phone just to get the stand-up in, even if they can't be at home?
Yeah.
So that'd be helpful.
So as far as attendance and everything, like that's really flexible. You can basically sign in anywhere that you are. But like the thing about the only thing about that is they just have to be conscious. Am I still like benefiting from being a part of this program? Or am I just trying to make sure that I meet the attendance grade and like that's it? Like that's the one thing they have to just be conscious of.
Yeah, you don't want to cheat yourself. Just getting the minimal to be covered versus you not taking the time to learn. Exactly. But I'm thinking more like people that are taking their kids back and forth to school, trying to hurry up and get home.
Oh yeah.
If they can be sitting in a parking lot waiting on their kid and doing their stand up, at least when they get home, they can hit the books, right?
Yeah, definitely. And there's a couple students that like are in the program now that have that exact sort of situation, and they're doing fine. They're able to get the help when they get back from like drop off or pick up, or if there's an errand, like there's no issue. People understand. It's more just about communication in those sort of situations.
Nice, great, good questions, Craig. Let's see, anybody else, any prospective students who are preparing for Kenzie who have any questions for TJ?
Timur, I just wanted to add on the scheduling thing. I'm on the Pacific Coast, and I am actually going on the Eastern time schedule because for me, that's going to be 6 to noon, which allows a little bit more flexibility. And I just wanted to add that when you go through the Kenzie interview, they do actually explain the times and the attendance requirements. So I think a lot of it, to help the coach that was just asking that question, a lot of the things that you could focus on too is like go to the interviews and see what's going to work. Like you don't have to choose before you do your interviews. Like I said, I did interviews for 3 different schools and I ended up going with Kenzie, and that's the only one I finished my project for. So like there's a lot more flexibility going into boot camps, I think, than a lot of people perceive.
Yeah, we try to we try to give people multiple options. We like to get them, encourage them to talk to several different schools, just so you've got several different things running before you make a decision. And that's why I was asking too, because that me not having talked to Kenzie before myself, before I started to Flatiron, I talked to, Lambda. I hadn't even heard of Kenzie back then, to be completely honest. I don't know, maybe it's before we got involved. I don't know. But just like to be able to give people multiple options so they can collect all that information from each school. And then scheduling obviously is a big deal for most people, because a lot of people are career changing, they're single moms or jobs or whatever. So that's good stuff to know, though. I'm taking notes.
Me too.
Awesome. So we have about 10 minutes left. TJ, I usually ask this question about the imposter syndrome on the AMAs. Is that something that you experienced going through Kenzie? And what advice do you have for people who might be experiencing it now?
Yeah, that's definitely something. Like, every time something got hard for me, it was just like an instant feeling of like, I'm not supposed to be here. Like, this stuff is not, like, maybe this certain thing might have made sense to me, but I wasn't supposed to really get it or something like that. But really, the thing about that is, like, that's just, I just view it as like human nature. So like, I just view it as like everybody has those feelings, and like everybody makes the choice of whether or not to feed into that. And like, the people that find success are the people that can fight through that. And like, the ways to fight through that is just knowing that it happens to everybody, and just that you have to talk and communicate, like, with what specifically it is. Like, just talk to even a classmate or somebody. If you don't want to talk to the instructor, just like what specifically it is that's like causing that. Well, first you have to kind of sit down and think, like, what's the real reason why I'm feeling so down about myself right now, like to the point where I feel like I'm not supposed to be there. And then once you find the cause for it, like, expressing that to somebody. Don't try to bottle it in. You don't get a medal for keeping it a secret. So just keeping that in mind was like, that's just what made me fight through that imposter syndrome.
Awesome. Thanks, TJ. Let's see. We have about 10 minutes left. What other questions do people have?
No. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm actually studying computer science in college. Well, that's what I'm majoring in. And
Nice.
okay, and this is, and like, yeah, I'm taking my very, very first steps into programming. Also, I don't even know. Maybe on the side I should like join a boot camp just to up my game, because I'm actually playing around with code right now. I don't know if you guys can see that.
I see you, man. Okay.
Yeah, that's actually Python.
Okay. Some Python. I see.
Yep. Oh, and I got really smart. I just decided to keep my textbooks because I actually got a scholarship for books. So like, I don't even know if I should.
Rigil, so is your question, should you be doing a boot camp or should you stay in school?
Yeah.
Do
like,
both?
I don't know if I should just do a boot camp on the side.
I honestly don't know about doing it on the side. I think if you like try to balance both of those things, it might end up hurting you in one thing or the other. Like, the college course might end up your grade might fall in the college course, or you just might not be benefiting from the boot camp as much. But I will say, like, if the computer science courses are working out for you, like, if you like computer science, and the other thing about college majors, like, you kind of have to plan ahead for the next couple of years. So if you kind of know what courses you need for the computer science school, wherever you're at, and you kind of know you have connections in the computer science field, because that's the other thing, is making connections, and Career Karma will probably help out with that, just being a part of that sort of organization. So Like, honestly, it just depends on whatever you feel like you're benefiting from the most. But I wouldn't try to juggle both of them at the same time. But there are benefits to both.
Yeah, good question. Good question. And to add to that, what I would say is there's this challenge called 100 Days of Code. And so I would encourage everyone to start the challenge, even if you're just a complete beginner and you're just using Grasshopper. But the idea behind the challenge is you would basically commit to writing a line of code each day. And I know the challenge goes as far as people making a GitHub commit each day. But it's very simple because it's more about consistency, dedication than how smart you are as a coder. And what happens is people who actually stick it out for 100 days, they actually see a tremendous amount of improvement just by keeping that habit. So I would encourage people to check it out as well and try it out. And we have 5 minutes left, so I want to see if we have room for 1 or 2 more questions. Any last questions from you all?
I have a question.
Yeah, jump in.
About the laptop requirement. I have a couple-year-old laptop. I don't know would that work or not work, or because I don't have a Mac. I have a Windows computer, but I was going to put Linux on it.
So I know that. Well, so personally, I have a Mac, so I couldn't tell you like specifics, but I know that other students that have Windows and that are running Linux, they've been able to progress through the same way. I don't know, you said that yours was a couple years old. It might have some performance issues, like with all of the extra things that you'll need to download. Like it might have some storage issues with that. Or runtime issues. But I think it'll still, like, you'll still be able to get the same amount of, like, you'll be able to work through the course the same. You'll still be able to progress through it.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. Yeah. I think there's different levels of like computers that you need. I think when you're just starting out, you can do everything from you can start on your phone. Eventually you'll probably need like at least a Chromebook to be able to do basic things in the browser. Then if you think you like it and you like coding, you can look into either buying a used computer on eBay or getting a refurbished laptop from Best Buy. Usually they go for a few $100. And I've seen countless of people do GoFundMe campaigns, and they just put it on Twitter, and they share their Twitter link inside of our community, and they're able to raise a couple $100 that way in order for them to buy a laptop, whether it's an Apple, a used MacBook, or a PC, and then they just install Ubuntu. So there's a lot of options for you, but don't jump too far ahead. If you're just starting out, just start writing some code, and we'll help you figure out everything else. Yeah, Triana said you can go to Walmart, and they have laptops starting at 200. Yeah, cool. And yeah, Richard, jump in.
All right, so first off, I would completely advise against the Walmart laptop. I've bought 3 of them, and they died within 2 months. The next thing is suggestions and I guess tips for maybe I'm a college student that's already enrolled full-time at Independence University for graphic arts with an information design emphasis. And now I'm trying to learn, I guess, a little bit of coding because at some point I wanted to go in game design and app development, stuff like that. And my FPA was suggesting that I might want to possibly learn some code to, do all of that because with graphic design, I'll be able to design it, but I won't be able to put it in unless I know something about coding somewhere down the line. So I'm just kind of, the question is tossing it up. How much time would I be able to still stay in Independence University and do Flatiron possibly part-time or Kenzie part-time and not be affected with my grades?
So it kind of depends on how many course hours you're taking at Independence University, and then also on the flip side of that, I'm not sure about Flatiron, but at least with Kenzie, I know it kind of might be hard to be a part-time student. Like there isn't a dedicated part-time program, so you might find that like if you have questions that aren't during those like that block of time for the class hours, you might not be able to get the same help that you would have been able to get like if you were kind of in attendance a little more. But
Right.
as far as like your grades, if you're able to still balance the content out, your attendance probably won't be affected as long as you're able to like sign in and that you're communicative and like in group projects you're participating and not like just leaving all the baggage onto your team.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah, jump in.
Yes. Hello, can you hear me? Right.
Hey.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Great. So I'm looking to start a boot camp, and I'm actually got a few matches. So right now, Kenzie's in the scopes, so is Flatiron, and some others. My whole thing is I'm trying to actually finish this stuff quickly. So I understood you said you were doing Kenzie at we should put about 30 to 40 hours a week, at least for. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
All right. If you double that time, if you commit like 50 to 60 hours, can you possibly finish it like faster, or do they give you that option?
I like that energy, and absolutely. Yeah, there's a self-paced option, and basically if your grade's at a high enough standing and they see the potential like that you can be able to handle more coursework, then they'll just open up all the assessments for you. So you'll still have the same release or the same due dates, but like there won't be any restriction on when they're released. So there's been some people that have been able to get through with the program like in 3 months. And then some, well, not
what I'm looking to do actually 3 months or
they got hired off within 3 months. But there's been people that have been able to complete the full program like in a lot shorter of a time because of that self-paced. So yeah, that's absolutely an option.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that, man, and thank you. Take care.
Yeah.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
And just to clarify, so you don't need to spend 30 to 40 hours to get accepted. That's not something you need to do to get accepted. But once you are in a course, Kenzie's course, it's unique in a way where it's full-time, but it's between like what a typical full-time bootcamp hours are and a part-time course. So it's about 6 hours a day. It's from 9 to 3 p.m. And it allows you to still have a part-time job for people who want to have income coming in. What TJ was saying is that if you start doing full-time, which is 9 to 6, and you're grasping the concepts, then you can actually get access to the self-paced option. So you can finish all the courses faster, but that's after you already begin your course.
And I can attest to the being in the self-paced situation. Me and my cohort, I think that was a benefit to that because me and my cohort were very close, and we were told by plenty of the instructors that they never see anything like us, and we were able to push through. And next thing you know, the unexpected happened. We ended up getting moved a quarter earlier, so we'll be graduating earlier. So 3 weeks we'll have our front end certification.
Awesome. Delvik, and can you share a little bit about your cohort? Because I know you were one of the people from Career Karma entering Kenzie, and there was like 20 of you who started at the same time.
Oh, well, due to you, Ruben, and your brother, y'all great idea, and getting down with Chalk, they had to create the August cohort for us, which was all remote, and so y'all brought together magic, right? I end up gaining 25 brothers and sisters that You know, we've never actually sat down in a room with each other, but TJ can tell you, if you think we won't physically get on a plane to come fight you behind one another, it's real. My cohort, man, we jailed together till this day. Like, we've lost 17 people due to a great deal of them having health issues. And, you know, two of the other people had they were in master's programs. This is good right here. Okay, thank you. Thank you. They were in master's programs, so we lost them, but we still keep very much in contact with them to see what they have going on, and you know what they still need help with. They still reach back for, you know, coding situation. We even have one guy who's actually working with LinkedIn right now. So he still reaches back to us. It's like, hey, what you guys working on? What can I help with? Or he'll throw a code at us. It's like, what do y'all guys see here? So now we're just basically working really closely. Like I said, y'all found magic in a bottle when that cohort was created, because pretty much I would say I was like the vocal, you know, leader of the situation, you know, and pretty much it's kind of how it is. You know, it's the big brother essence in me, how I am with my brothers and sisters. So we did a lot of coding together. We did a lot of long nights together. I mean, it's crazy. You'll see a Zoom room where they had to create a collaboration room for us, because they found out we were creating Zoom rooms and they were only lasting 40 minutes long. So they created a collab room for us. And so you'll come into the collab room anytime and you'll see anywhere from 10 to 12 of us working on something. And where those who had the single mothers or the wives, like, hey, y'all go ahead and go on and we'll get you caught up, you know, afterwards. And that's what ended up taking place. So it was the beauty of the family orientation of understanding where we would want to be if we were in that person's shoes.
Yeah, and I love that, because this is actually why it's so much easier doing it with other people. This is why we have squads on the app. When you're doing something outside your comfort zone, your chances of succeeding is way, way, way higher if you surround yourself with people who share the same common goal. And going into it, you might be going in to get a higher paying job, and you will get that, but you'll also get a lot of friends who were there in the trenches with you. And you'll get that in your boot camp. You'll get that from your squads. You'll get that from even people who are on the calls like this tonight. So I want to say thanks to Delbrick. I also want to say thank TJ for joining us tonight. I know it's already getting late on the East Coast. TJ, for people who want to stay in touch with you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Oh, okay. Add me on LinkedIn and then hit me up on Instagram too. You can find me from the same name, TJ Hindman. Is there like, I put my username in the chat or something? I can do that.
Yeah, if you can drop your username in the chat, and I'll drop your LinkedIn in the chat as well. So I just dropped your LinkedIn in here.
Okay. Yeah, there's my Insta.
Okay.
Can I get a selfie real quick?
Yeah, let's do it. Let me.
All right.
Let's all say, let's break in.
Hey, on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Let's break in. Yeah. On that note, I want to say thank you, TJ, for joining in. Let's give him a round of applause, everyone, for this great meeting, for sharing so much advice.
Thank you, TJ.
Yeah, thanks, TJ.
Thank you, TJ.
Thank you.
Thank
I had a really
you.
good time.
Yeah.
Thanks, TJ.
Thanks, TJ.
And to all of you listening in a year from now, you're going to be sitting in TJ's shoes, sharing your experience once you're in your jobs. So get ready for that, and let's break in, everyone. Good night, everyone. Thanks, TJ.
Peace out. It's been real.
Peace.